Streets are one of those few elements that are universal in a city. They're literally everywhere. They're in, rich neighborhoods or underserved communities. They're in urban centers as well as rural areas. And so if you're able to run every street, you get the opportunity to see all of the city. And it's one of those few opportunities to do so.
One man claims to have now run on every street in Salt Lake City. Bryant Heath is his name, and he set a goal for himself at the beginning of this year, starting with the Sugar House Park area on January 2nd. He's now run across the entire city, from neighborhoods along the Wasatch Front eastward to the areas past the city's airport on the west.
Hi, I'm Bryant Heath. In 2020, I ran all the streets of Salt Lake City. I like to go running for two reasons. I like the simplicity, how easy it is to go running. What do you need? All you need is a pair of running shoes and maybe some shorts, and you just go out there. The idea that, we're in a very technologically dense time, and so you seem to be always connected, and, there's all these different things vying for your attention. That's why I like running so much, is because you can kind of deconnect. You can go off and kind of take a little bit more agency in your life and go explore. If you want to turn left, you can turn left. You want to run for 4 miles, run for 4 miles. You want to go for 14 miles, go for 14 miles. It's you making all the decisions, which it's very powerful. So with driving, you're kind of concentrated getting from point A to point B. And you're only really observing anything that's getting in your way between going from point A to point B. And so you kind of have blinders on. You don't really look around or notice anything. You might notice the guy who cut you off, and that's it. But whenever you're actually running through the neighborhood, you have the time. You can move your head left and right and look and see, oh, there's beautiful garden over here, or there's a mural over there, or a statue over here. And you kind of notice these things a lot more often. I first had the idea in about December 2019. I was kind of on Google Maps looking for a place to eat, and I was just kind of hunting around, zooming around, in and out, and then I just kind of had this aha moment, this dawning that I haven't really been to much of the city. As a whole, I probably hadn't been to about 75% of the entire city, and this was after living here for 10 years. So I thought that was kind of a travesty, and I figured maybe this would be a good project to pair my love of running with maybe exploring the city a lot more. Originally, the project's idea was conceived to kind of be a New Year's resolution, to explore the city more, maybe stick to my running a little bit more frequently. But after the pandemic hit, come March, everything took on a different sort of meaning, To be honest, at that point, the running was more of a reprieve to the pandemic. I could get out into the open, kind of clear my head about all the craziness that was happening around. But even then, it wasn't quite fully a reprieve, because you had these constant reminders. I'd pass a playground, and they would have yellow tape across the equipment. I tried to run the streets near the VA hospital, and I wasn't allowed on site because they were only letting on staff and patients. I would see a lot more runners because the gyms were closed, and less vehicle traffic because no one had anywhere to go. You kind of see these big numbers, like 1,000 miles or 200,000 people live in Salt Lake. And before the project, they were just numbers. You didn't have any appreciation of what that meant. But after running past where every single one of those 200,000 people live, where they work, where they shop, where they eat, you get a better appreciation of the scale of the city and the magnitude of what some of these large numbers mean. The areas that I liked the most was actually the west side. This was an area that prior to the project I didn't necessarily go that often to. I could probably count on two hands the number of times I spent, west of the interstate, which looking back is a bit of a travesty in my opinion. Whenever I first arrived here in Salt Lake, of course I didn't know anything about anywhere, to be honest. And then so you wind up, just having casual conversations with people, maybe looking up some stuff online, and it's a little sad just how pervasive some of these stereotypes are about certain communities and certain areas. And I feel like they just kind of fester, without people exploring to see what it actually is living in certain places. That's another thing I learned through this project, was how we all just kind of normally or naturally just live in our bubble. It's pretty powerful to think about, like, if you can just go outside it for a little bit, to go into a different area. And with me, it was superficially. I would just run through a community, but that was just enough to have a appreciation and a different perspective of what others might have to be going through. This particular project was very earth-shattering in the sense that now I have at least a geographical sense of what it might be like to live in all sorts of neighborhoods around the city. And after running all the streets over in Rose Park and Fair Park and Poplar Grove and Glendale, you learn that it's all incorrect, basically. And it's a shame that I let these stereotypes kind of influence, where I wanted to go in the city, because they have amazing parks. They have the amazing Jordan River Trail. They have, quaint shopping centers and excellent restaurants. It's a bit of a hidden gem, and I think that more people should explore that area for sure. It is a very diverse community. All these neighborhoods bring their own character. The best example would be thinking of 700 West over on the west side. Within a span of about a half a mile, you have a Buddhist temple. You have a building for the Islamic Society of Bosniaks. You have the Our Lady of Guadalupe Catholic Church. You have a historic ward. You have a Tongan church, all within half a mile of each other. All these different communities all coming together in one location. I feel like that's a microcosm of the city as a whole. Of course, each neighborhood has its distinct flavor and its differences. But what surprised me the most is kind of seeing how much we all have in common. Like, in any neighborhood, you will see, people outside gardening. In any neighborhood, you'll see kids just playing and running through sprinklers. Or you might see people just working on their cars and trucks. It doesn't matter if you're in the Avenues or in the East Bench or in Sugar House or out in Rose Park or West Point. All these things are kind of, you start seeing over and over and over again, these situations and scenarios, and it just got me thinking about how much, us as people just have in common with one another, Whenever you think about your own personal identity, it's kind of composed of a lot of things. You have like your work self, you have your family self, you have yourself that, you interact with your friends with, and those are all just faces to your identity, and collectively they make up who you are. And I feel like neighborhoods are the same. You have each and every neighborhood is just a different face of what the city actually is. And so, the Rose Park is one face, the East Bench or the Avenues is another face, but collectively they make the city. And this is why I feel like Salt Lake City, the whole, is greater than the sum of its parts.